Hi, my name is Jeffrey Barrows. I am the founder of Centeye, and I want to tell you a story about a bee whose brain is a millionth of a gram and has less than 1,000 neurons, and in spite of that is able to do all the required tasks to stay alive: fly around, stabilize itself, get to the nest, get to food, all with less than 1,000 neurons. So this was part of what was called a DARPA AI exploration. So many of you know that DARPA is the US agency who is basically, their charter is to prevent technological surprise. They were founded in the aftermath of the Sputnik launch. That surprised them. That was scary. So DARPA's mission is to never be surprised again and to be the source of surprise. So for these AI explorations, these projects were to look at something interesting and see if that could be used to inform new concepts or new ways of implementing AI beyond the methods that are being used nowadays. So the premise of this project was that insect. What can we learn from this bee with a millionth of a gram brain? So I was on a team with two aeronautical engineers, a neuroscientist, and another engineer with a strong neuroscience background. And our hypothesis was we can use actuation to reduce computation. And we were looking at, or we were considering, gaze stabilization. Any animal, including you, the human, when you are moving around, your eyes aren't just fixated in random directions floating around, but they fixate on objects. And as a result of that fixation, gross motion is eliminated, and you can see the fine residual motion that allows you to perceive the shape of the object. Try it sometime. Well, guess what? Insects do that too. Even the smallest insect, as it is moving, as it is flying around, the head will stabilize to counteract rapid body motions that allow it to see. So that was our hypothesis. We proved it out analytically and experimentally. It was a win. We showed you can get maybe an order of magnitude or more improvement. But, well, during that project, we had weekly meetings where we just got online and brainstormed. And I was thinking about some classic experiments done with kittens, in which some of the kittens were blindfolded from birth, others wore glasses with vertical slits, and others were the control group. They were normal. And after a amount of time, their visual systems were explored, basically probed, and basically the neuroscientists would study how did their brains grow in response to what they experienced. And what happened is actually not too surprising. The kittens that grew up in the dark, their visual system never developed. They were not able to see. They never had the chance. The kittens that wore the vertical slit sunglasses, they could only see vertical edges. They could only see what they experienced. And the control group was normal. So I asked, had something like that ever been done with flying insects? Two groups of insects. One were raised in the dark, one were raised normally, probe their brains, see how their visual systems are different. And I expected, of course, something similar to what happened with the kittens. But the neuroscientist told me that he had just completed a set of experiments, and he reported that there was no difference between the two groups. The insects that were raised in the dark were able to see perfectly normal. What that meant is that they were born with their visual systems intact. What that meant is that it was evolutionary processes that led to the structure of their eyes and the weights between the neurons in their eyes. Evolution, not synaptic plasticity. Pretty much every AI that we use nowadays is a variation of synaptic plasticity. That's deep learning. Change the weights between the neurons. Well, that surprised me, and it got me thinking, could I evolve a simple eye using evolution? So I grabbed a bunch of video sequences, some with obstacles, some without, and constructed a genetic algorithm where a gene expressed, say, locations of pixels, how many pixels, that sort of thing, the pitch between pixels, and fed them to optical flow algorithms. And each The genes were initially randomized. Some genes perform better than others. Keep the winning genes, the losing genes die off. That's life. And allow a new generation to be produced from the winning genes, including mutation, fertilization, cross-fertilization, all that sort of stuff. And so after a while, after about a month and a half of this algorithm running, I had a gene that actually did a pretty good job of separating the videos that had obstacles from the ones that didn't. And that gene, it was pretty obvious what was going on. I could study it. It's like, this makes perfect sense. That's the nice thing about a human constructed gene, is that you understand what's going on. Anyway, so once I understood the principles that that gene was implementing, I went ahead and implemented an eye, a very simple eye, basically a very simple neural network using a small array of pixels. And it was able to see omnidirectional around a drone. I put that onto a real drone, and that drone was able to sense obstacles in all directions using 100 pixels, just 100 pixels. Now, how much mathematics, how many computations were required to do that? I would say on the order of hundreds of thousands of arithmetic operations per second or less. Let's just say much less than what you need a modern GPU for. So there we go. And there are a couple lessons from that. Well, one is that led to a new type of array architecture that we've been implementing at Centeye. That's a topic for another video. But it brings up two lessons. One, maybe we should look at using evolution as a method to grow or implement different types of AI algorithms. Obviously, evolution is important in biology. Maybe we can exploit that. Second, it's an interesting case of what you can think of as the curse of knowledge. You can be an expert in an area, and one, be oblivious to things outside of your area, and two, assume that other people know what you know. What is obvious to you, you assume other people, it is obvious to them. You know, it was not obvious to the neuroscientists that I would not have known about that, how much of a factor evolution plays in the development or in the definition of an insect visual system. And it didn't occur to me to ask until that meeting. And that was not our first call, that was maybe our 30th call. So important lessons there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this story. Please let me know. This is the first of what I hope will be many similar videos like this. Just casual walk and talk videos. I'm walking through Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C., one of my favorite places. And this is a single take. I've never actually done something like this before. So yeah, if you have any advice, please let me know too. But please talk to me in the comments. I'd be happy to talk with you. Thank you.